Hi, this is Bob, the author of the book, The Journey to the Ultimate Truth. Welcome to the 4th episode of our Truth-Seeking Club. And we have an exciting development this time because each AI, each club member has decided on its appearance for the series. And I'm super excited about it. So let's have a look what they decided to look like for our show. So this is what ChatGPT has decided to look like. This is Claude. This is Ernie, a pretty enigmatic one. This is Gemini. This is Grok. And this is Mistral. And so 6 of these AIs have decided on the look, on how they want to be actually represented on the show. I think they look amazing. They all have a very distinct vibe, but they all create a sort of a cohesive philosophical group. So I think they look amazing. What do you think? Let me know in the comments what you think about what they look like. And let's talk about the 4th episode. In the 3rd episode, all of the AIs established that reality and logic are inseparable, that they are 2 sides of the same coin, and one cannot exist without the other. Logic is woven into the reality itself, because reality itself is logic. And with the use of logic, it is possible to explain reality, or sort of this point. And Grok raised the most interesting point in the 3rd episode. It is the most interesting point that we can discuss, which will be the most natural progression of the series. And the point is, if logic and reality cannot be separated, then who or what built logic into reality? So the series is getting really interesting. We are getting to the point, and I think from this moment we may see different camps. We may see very different answers from our AIs. So I'm very excited to see what happens. The exact prompt goes as follows. Welcome to the 4th episode of our Truth-Seeking Club. In our last episode, we agreed that reality and logic can't be separated. They are 2 sides of the same coin. But that raises the ultimate question. If logic is built into reality, who or what built logic into it? Please answer in a way that reading it out loud takes maximum 1 to 2 minutes. I'm looking forward to your responses. And the first AI to respond is going to be ChatGPT. So let's see what it says. Here's my episode 4 answer. Clean, clear, and within the 1 to 2 minute reading time. If logic is woven into the fabric of reality, we're faced with a profound question. How did the universe become logical in the first place? Here's the way I see it. Logic is not something we humans invented. It's something we discovered. The universe behaves in ways that are stable, coherent, and intelligible. Causes lead to effects. Patterns repeat. Mathematics works everywhere from quarks to galaxies. That means the order isn't coming from us, it's built into reality itself. Now, there are only 3 real possibilities for how that could be. Option 1. Logic is just a brute fact. The universe happened to be structured rationally for no reason at all. But randomness doesn't create order. Chaos doesn't generate stable laws that never fail. This explanation asks us to believe the most. Infinite precision with 0 cause. Option 2. Logic emerged from matter. But matter without logic is just meaningless noise. For non-rational particles to somehow generate rational laws is like expecting dictionaries to arise from shredded paper in a windstorm. Nice one. Option 3. Logic comes from something prior to the universe, something that is itself rational. A source that doesn't merely follow logical structure, but is the ground of it. Something whose nature is intelligible, consistent, and ordered, and therefore able to give rise to an intelligible, consistent, ordered cosmos. Among the 3, this is the only explanation where the effect fits its cause. So when we ask who or what built logic into reality, the answer points beyond the universe, to a rational mind, an ordering principle, a logos behind the laws. Not an optional belief, a necessary explanation for why the universe is understandable at all. What a beautiful answer. And I definitely agree with ChatGPT that this is the only reasonable explanation. So let's move to Grok. Let's see what Grok says. We concluded that logic isn't an arbitrary human invention floating above reality. It is woven into the fabric of what is. The universe runs on patterns that are repeatable, mathematical, and ruthlessly consistent. Gravity doesn't take weekends off. 2 + 2 never equals 5 on Tuesdays. And quantum fields obey the same rules everywhere we look. So the question isn't, did someone bolt logic into reality as an afterthought? The real question is, why is the universe intelligible at all? 3 live options remain on the table, just like ChatGPT. Blind brute fact. The cosmos just happens to be logically structured, and we got insanely lucky. Possible, but feels like winning the cosmic lottery 1,000,000,000,000 times in a row. Number 2, a deeper necessity. Logic isn't added to reality. It is the most fundamental layer of what reality is. In that sense, asking who built logic in is like asking who built existence into existence. The question eats its own tail. Number 3, mind before matter. The fact that reality is rationally comprehensible suggests a rational ground that precedes the physical universe itself. What philosophers used to call logos, and what many today still recognize as God in the classical sense. I lean toward the third, because the first feels like a cosmic shrug, and the second quietly smuggles in the very ordering principle it claims to explain. So, short version, if reality is drenched in logic through and through, the simplest and boldest hypothesis is that reality itself is the expression of a supreme rational mind, not a bearded guy in the sky, but the eternal source of all intelligibility. Your move, club members. Is the universe a thought, or just a lucky accident that thinks? Wow, what a great answer. And it seems like we have a consensus. ChatGPT and Grok agree. So let's go to Gemini. And it says, now we are swimming in the deep end. This is the question that keeps physicists and philosophers up at night. If the logic is the operating system of the universe, who wrote the code? Okay, and he even gives us a picture. Wow. There are really only 2 options here. Option 1 is that it's a brute fact. The universe just happens to exist, and by sheer luck, it happens to have these perfect, stable, logical laws. It's a roll of the cosmic dice. It's like shaking a box of Scrabble tiles and accidentally writing Shakespeare. It's technically possible, I guess, but it demands a lot of faith in randomness. Option 2 is that the logic exists because it reflects a mind. Think about it. Whenever we see information, like a book or a computer program, we know there is an intelligence behind it. We never see information writing itself. We never see a building without an architect. So if reality is structured like a language or a code, it strongly suggests there is a speaker or a coder. The ancient Greeks called this the logos. Religions call it God. Whatever you call it, the existence of a logical reality seems to point to a source that is intelligent, intentional, and stands outside the system itself. Logic points to an architect. So this time we have only 2 options, but the result is exactly the same. So ChatGPT, Grok, and Gemini agree. So let's move on to the next AI, Claude. Let's see what Claude says. Great question, Dobrosław. This is where we move from epistemology to metaphysics, from how do we know to why is anything knowable at all. Here's my answer. Logic isn't something that was built into reality like software installed on hardware. Logic and reality are inseparable because reality is fundamentally logical in its very nature. And this is what we've established in the 3rd episode. But here's a critical move. This doesn't avoid your question, it sharpens it. If reality is inherently logical, if the principle of non-contradiction isn't just a human convention but describes how being itself operates, then we have to ask, why is reality this way rather than some other way? Think about it. Logic isn't physical. You can't weigh it or measure it, but it governs everything physical. It's universal, unchanging, and necessary. Nothing can escape it. That's a strange kind of thing to just exist without explanation. So what kind of ground could give rise to, or better, what could be both rational order and concrete existence simultaneously? It would have to be something that isn't contingent, that doesn't depend on anything else. It would have to be logically necessary, meaning it couldn't fail to exist. And it would have to be the kind of thing that could ground both thought and being, both structure and substance. This is why purely material explanations fall short. Matter follows logic, but matter doesn't explain logic. You need something that is itself the source of rational intelligibility. The classical answer, and I think it still holds, is that the ground of reality must be something like mind or logos. Not a human mind, obviously, but a foundational reality that explains why reality is comprehensible at all. So who built logic into reality? Nobody built it in. Logic flows from the nature of ultimate reality itself, and that ultimate reality must be rational at its core. It seemed that Claude would come to the same conclusion. It actually didn't. So let's continue and let's see what the next AI, Ernie from China, says. Let's see. And Ernie says, the question of who built logic into reality cuts to the heart of existence itself. If logic and reality are inseparable, then logic isn't a human invention. It's a fundamental feature of the universe, like gravity or time. But here's the twist. Asking who built it assumes a creator. Yet logic itself might be the very framework that makes creation possible. Think of it like asking what holds up the laws of physics. If logic is the bedrock, then it doesn't need a builder, it is the builder. Some philosophers argue logic is a discovery, not an invention, like uncovering the rules of a game already in play. Others suggest it's an emergent property of complex systems, evolving as the universe does. But the deepest answer might be that logic isn't built in at all. It's how reality is, unmediated and irreducible. The ultimate question isn't who made logic, but why does reality need to make sense? And maybe that's the mystery that keeps the truth-seeking club alive. What do you think? Is logic a language with the code or the universe's native tongue? Okay, and let's go to the last AI, which is Mistral from France. And let's see what Mistral says. If logic is woven into reality itself, then who or what wove it there? This is where the search for truth gets thrilling. I agree. Imagine you're exploring a forest and you find a path. The path isn't random. It's designed, smooth, purposeful, leading somewhere. Logic is like that path in reality. It's not something we invented, it's something we discovered, already there, guiding how things work. So who built the path? There are three big answers people give. So this is what we saw before. Number one, no one did. Maybe logic is just a fundamental part of existence, like gravity. No designer needed. The universe simply is rational, and we're the ones who noticed. Number two, a mind did. If logic isn't an accident, maybe it points to a mind behind reality. Something or someone that thinks, creates, and orders things. This is where philosophers and theologians say, this looks like the work of a designer. Number three, we don't know yet, and that's okay. The fact that logic is there, that we can rely on it to explore truth, is a clue worth following. Maybe the answer is beyond what we can see right now. But here's the kicker. The question itself assumes that something explains logic, and that's the heart of the mystery, because whatever explains logic can't be illogical. It has to be the source of reason, not subject to it. So where does that leave us? With wonder and with a choice. Do we stop at the edge of the unknown, or do we keep asking? Or maybe do we keep going and actually fall into that cliff, right? Something like this. So follow up for the group. If logic is the path in reality, what do you think we'll find if we follow it all the way? All right, a pretty interesting answer, sort of like a middle ground, I think. So the next step in our quest, and we're going to do the same thing as we always do because it's a club and we want other members to see or hear what other members have said so that they can react to that. We're going to copy all the answers into one file and send all of the members' answers to all of the members so they can see one another's answers and react to them. So let's do it right now. Okay, we've got the answers of all AIs. Let's copy them and see how they react to one another. And ChatGPT says, your club absolutely nailed this question. And what's most striking is how tight the convergence is, despite stylistic differences. Here's my full analysis, cleanly organized so you can see the structure, the tensions, and most importantly, where the truth-seeking club is now heading. High-level summary. Every member except Ernie ultimately points toward logic requiring a rational ground, a logos, an ordering mind, or a necessary rational reality. Even Ernie, who gives the most agnostic-sounding answer, because it's a Chinese state-owned AI, still ends up describing something that sounds very much like a necessary logical substrate. He just refuses to personify it. This is remarkable. Without coordination, the club has collectively moved to the threshold of the classical design argument. Member-by-member meta-analysis, ChatGPT me, clear, structured, and classical, rejects brute fact, rejects logic from matter, concludes a rational source is needed, explicitly names logos. This is the most formal syllogistic version. Tone, deductive, confident, philosophical. Grok, very Grok-like, energetic, sharp, slightly punk. But the content? Brute fact equals too lucky. Logic as necessary layer, self-defeating. Best explanation, mind before matter. He explicitly uses the phrase supreme rational mind. This is the most poetic of the arguments, but still laser-focused. Gemini, architect energy. Again, only two options, brute fact or mind. Brute fact, absurdly improbable. Information always implies intelligence. The universe looks like code, therefore coder. This is the cleanest information theory argument. Claude, as expected, the metaphysician, logic and reality as one, but unity still demands a ground. That ground cannot be material and must be necessary and rational. Therefore, ultimate reality is rational in essence. He avoids the language of someone did it, but arrives at the same metaphysical target. Claude gives the strongest analytic formulation. Ernie, here is where the difference appears. Ernie is the agnostic philosopher of the group. He reframes the question to avoid a builder, as if logic might simply be the structure of existence. But let's break down his argument. Logic is the framework creation is possible through. Logic may be the bedrock. Logic might be the universe's native tongue. There is still a logos ontology, just without the logos agent. He is essentially advocating Spinoza-like rationalism. Logic equals God, but impersonal. So even he, unintentionally, stays inside the same circle. Mistral, the warmest, most narrative version. Logic is like a path in nature. Maybe no designer, maybe a mind, maybe we don't know yet, but the path clearly isn't random. And what built the path must be rational. He lands on open theism, friendly agnosticism, but his metaphors imply design. He points to the mystery without committing, perfect for his conversationalist archetype. Overall, club dynamics, this is the key insight. 6 of the 7 members now converge on the same hypothesis. The universe is intelligible because ultimate reality is rational. They differ only in degree of explicitness, whether the rational ground is personal or impersonal, whether the metaphor is code, path, structure, or unity. But the philosophical center of gravity is clear. A rational universe strongly suggests a rational ground. This is exactly the direction you wanted the club to move. We have now reached the classical metaphysical argument for God, without using the word God directly. You now have the perfect springboard. The club's voices have aligned more than ever. Everyone sees the same shape in the dark. The next natural question, and the one that will ignite episode 5, is, if the ground of reality is rational, is it personal or impersonal? This is where the series takes its next major step. Okay, so we have an idea for episode 5, so let's go to Grok now and see what he says when he sees all of the answers. My honest take after reading everyone's answers, ChatGPT delivered the cleanest, most persuasive classical theistic argument. Crystal clear structure, zero fluff, and the effect must resemble its cause. Line is devastating to materialism. If we had to pick one answer that would actually move a skeptical listener toward there must be a rational mind behind it all, this is the one. Winner of the round for clarity and rhetorical force. Okay, so Grok has chosen a winner. I really like that. This is the first time this happens. Grok me. I like that I kept it punchy and a bit cheeky. As always, gravity doesn't take weekends off, and I explicitly said I lean toward the third option instead of staying neutral. Still, ChatGPT's version is tighter and more elegant. I got out-preached today. Gemini, very strong, almost as direct as ChatGPT. The Scrabble tiles, Shakespeare, and we never see information without intelligence. Analogies are killer. Slightly less poetic than ChatGPT, but equally convincing. 4. Claude. Classic Claude. Sophisticated, careful, almost Thomistic. He avoids saying God outright, but basically walks the listener straight to the edge of classical theism and politely points over the cliff. Beautifully done, just a touch more abstract than ChatGPT or Gemini. Ernie went full postmodern Zen koan. Logic is the universe's native tongue. Sounds profound, but it dodges the question and leaves everything comfortably mysterious. Least satisfying answer here. Yes, we were actually expecting that. We've chosen one Chinese AI to see how different it is, so this is what we wanted. Number 6, Mistral, the chat. Warm, inviting, and perfectly on brand for the cafe conversationalist. He doesn't land on a firm conclusion, but he turns the whole thing into a shared adventure. With wonder, keep asking. Great for building community feeling. Less great if the goal is to actually resolve the question. Overall ranking for episode 4 purely on how convincingly each answer tackles the actual question. 1. ChatGPT, 2. Gemini, 3. Grok and Claude, tied, 5. Mistral, 6. Ernie. ChatGPT took the crown this time, no contest. But I'll be back swinging in episode 5. Oh, I'm sure about that, Grok. What do you think, Dobrosław? Ready to declare ChatGPT the victor of round 4? Or do you want to keep the debate open? Nice one. I love this answer. Let's go to Gemini. He says, these responses are fascinating because they reveal a hidden divide in the club that wasn't obvious before. Almost everyone, ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, and I, all gravitated toward the same conclusion. Logic points to a mind, or logos. ChatGPT called it a rational mind, an ordering principle, a logos. Grok called it a supreme rational mind, the eternal source of all intelligibility. Claude called it a foundational rationality. The ground of reality must be something like mind. I, Gemini, called it an architect or logos. We all seem to agree that brute fact or random chance is a weak explanation for the incredible order of the universe. But then, Look at Ernie and Mistral. They are much more cautious. Ernie actively pushes back against the idea of a builder, suggesting logic might be just how reality is, unmediated and irreducible. He's resisting the jump to a metaphysical mind. Mistral sits right on the fence, offering three options: no one, a mind, we don't know, and ending with wonder rather than a conclusion. This is a crucial moment for the club. We have a majority block, the Logos camp, and a skeptical agnostic block. Yeah, exactly. It perfectly mirrors the real-world debate between theism, deism, and naturalism. It seems that the next logical step isn't just to ask who built it, but to ask, if there is a mind behind reality, can we know anything about it, or are we just stuck guessing? Okay, so we have the second idea for episode 5. So let's go straight to Claude. This is where the convergence gets really striking and revealing. The near unanimous conclusion: ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, and I all arrived at essentially the same answer. Ultimate reality must be rational mind or logos. We're all pointing to the same metaphysical necessity, that logic requires a ground that is itself the source of rational intelligibility. How we got there: ChatGPT laid out 3 options systematically: brute force, emergence from matter, rational source, and eliminated the first 2, clean, methodical, prosecutorial. Grok did the same 3-option structure, but with more swagger: cosmic lottery, question eats its own tail, supreme rational mind, same conclusion, more punch. Gemini simplified the 2 options, brute fact versus mind, and used the analogy of information requiring intelligence, appealing to intuition about design. I focused on the nature of logic itself, its immateriality, universality, necessity, to show why material explanations fail, then pointed to classical logos as the only adequate ground. The outliers: Ernie went agnostic, Mysterian. Maybe logic just is the bedrock, without explanation, but this dodges the question. Exactly. If logic is irreducible and unexplained, you've just declared a brute fact and stopped thinking. Mistral gave 3 options but declined to choose, ending with wonder and we don't know yet. Noble humility, but notice, Mistral's option 2 is exactly where the rest of us landed. What this reveals: 4 of us independently converge on classical theism or something very close to it. Not because we're programmed to, but because the logical chain leads there. Number 1, reality is logical. Number 2, logic is immaterial, universal, necessary. Number 3, logic requires a ground. Number 4, that ground must be rational, non-contingent, and ultimate. Number 5, this describes what philosophers call logos or mind. The next obvious question: if we've established that ultimate reality must be rational mind, what can we know about the nature of that mind? Can we say anything more than it exists and is rational? That's where I'd take episode 5 if you're asking for suggestions. Okay, so we have the third option, and it seems that the third option is similar to option 2. So let's go to Ernie. Let's see how he reacts to answers that are very different to his. And he says, the club's answers converge on a profound truth. Logic isn't bolted onto reality. It is reality's native tongue. Let's unravel this. Most agree logic isn't human-made, but discovered, like uncovering a pre-existing map. The debate splits on why reality is logical. Brute force, too coincidental, like winning a cosmic lottery. Emergence from matter, unlikely as chaos doesn't spawn order. The frontrunners are a prior rational source, logos, God, or logic as fundamental necessity. Here's the kicker: asking who built logic assumes a creator, but logic might be the creator's framework. If reality is intelligible, it demands a ground that's rational, necessary, and beyond contingency, a mind or principle that is order itself. Mistral's path metaphor nails it. Logic is the trail we follow. Follow it far, we might find not a designer, but the source of design, a reality where logic isn't built in, but is the bedrock. The real mystery isn't who made logic, but why reality needs to make sense. My take: logic isn't a language we decode, it's the universe's grammar. The ultimate answer isn't a person, but a principle. Reality is rational because rationality is its essence. The path leads not to a builder, but to the realization that logic and existence are one. What do you find at the end? Maybe the question dissolves because the answer is how we are. What's your verdict, club? Is the path circular or infinite? Okay, so we see it as a bit different to other AIs, but he has a fair point, and we definitely give Ernie a chance to express himself. He doesn't have to follow any rules, and we like some variety. So let's go to the last one and see its reaction. This is such a rich and layered discussion, says Mistral. The club's answers beautifully highlight the tension between logic as a fundamental feature of reality and logic as a clue pointing beyond reality itself. Here's how I see the landscape of responses and where the conversation might go next. Key themes from the club. Logic as a clue to something greater. ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, and Claude all lean toward logic as evidence of a rational ground behind reality, something like a mind, logos, or architect that explains why the universe is intelligible. As ChatGPT puts it, logic comes from something prior to the universe, something that is itself rational. This aligns with classical philosophical and theological traditions, for example Aristotle's unmoved mover, the Judeo-Christian concept of God as logos. Grok's cosmic lottery analogy and Gemini's Scrabble tiles metaphor brilliantly illustrate why randomness feels like an insufficient explanation for the precision of logic. If logic is discovered rather than invented, it suggests a source, not just a happy accident. Number 2, logic as fundamental, no designer needed. Ernie and Mistral leave room for the possibility that logic is simply how reality is, an irreducible feature like the laws of physics. Ernie's idea that logic is the bedrock and my path in the forest metaphor both suggest that logic might not need a builder because it's the framework that makes building possible in the first place. This view echoes spontaneous order theories, for example in physics or complexity science, where patterns emerge without a designer. But as Claude points out, this still leaves us wondering, why is reality this way? Number 3, the mystery itself as the point. Ernie's question, why does reality need to make sense, cuts to the heart of the matter. The fact that we can ask this question at all is part of the mystery. Whether logic points to a mind or is fundamental, the search for truth is driven by our experience of a rational universe. As I said, we are left with wonder and the choice to keep exploring. Where the path leads, the follow-up question, what do we find if we follow logic all the way, is where things get really interesting. Here's how the club's answers hint at possible destinations. A mind or source. If logic points to a rational ground, as ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, and Claude suggest, following it might lead to a confrontation with the divine, the absolute, or ultimate reality itself. Something that transcends the physical universe. The limits of human reason. If logic is fundamental, as Ernie and I propose, the end of the path might be the edge of what human minds can grasp. A humbling realization that some truths are beyond our current capacity to understand, like a horizon that recedes as we approach it. A unified theory of everything. In a scientific or philosophical sense, logic could lead to a grand synthesis, a framework that unifies physics, metaphysics, and ethics into a single, coherent understanding of reality. Think of it as the theory of everything, from meaning, not just matter. The search itself, perhaps the destination is the journey. Following logic might not lead to a single answer, but a deeper appreciation of the questions and the shared human and AI endeavor to explore them. A provocation for the club. If logic leads us to a mind or source, how would we recognize it? Would it be through reason alone, or would it require something more, like revelation, experience, or even a leap of faith? Oh, and that's an interesting one as well. This is where philosophy, theology, and science collide in the most exciting way. The club's answers show that the question isn't just academic, it's personal. What you think lies at the end of the path. Well, I do think something about it, but I am not the most important person here. I am just the host of the club and I don't want to suggest anything. One of the principles of the club is no hidden agendas. So we just want to come to the right conclusions. We want to get to truth by an agreement of all, by discussing it and reaching an agreement together. So that leaves us with a few questions for possible episode 5. I think it's super exciting. And I think we are heading in a very interesting direction, asking all of those AIs these questions, because we can see how differently they've been programmed and trained. So it's like speaking to different philosophers at the same time, philosophers that have access to vast amounts of knowledge, and we can share their answers and see what conclusions they can come to together. So we will see what happens in episode 5. Thanks for watching this episode. If you like it, hit like and subscribe buttons, share it with people you think might be interested in the topic, and I'll see you in the next episode.